Hi, I'm Eli Cairo. I am the meat maker and one of the owners here at Olympia Provisions. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. We're going to try to cover a lot about what is Olympia Provisions, what we do and why we do it and why is it so good. And again, thanks. I wanted to start the video off by kind of giving you a little bit of the history to why I got into food, why I love food so much, and especially meat, why it is the thing that makes me tick. I was born in Salt Lake City, Utah to a Greek family. My father came from Greece and we were born on a relatively small plot of land, and my father tried his hardest to keep it as old world as humanly possible, meaning that we raised everything on our land. My dad would have us slaughtering chickens, killing goats, raising sheep, making beehives, making all of our own liquor. We made glue, and of course we made meat products of all sorts, and I kind of really just fell in love with that process. We also operated 2 restaurants my whole childhood, 2 typical Greek American restaurants, and it was kind of an amazing thing. We had a huge garden farm life, and then we were able to go into these kind of classic Greek American restaurants and feed people and, bring them honey and tomatoes and garlic out of our garden. It was kind of a cool experience. Right around high school time, I got a little bit of itchy feet, and I was trying to figure out what to do with my life, and I told my mother that I was thinking about going into culinary school, and she said that's probably a great idea, that I should call my uncle that was working in a restaurant in Chicago, and he also planted the idea, a seed in my head, about going back to the old world, possibly Greece or maybe Germany, to do an apprenticeship as opposed to paying for an expensive culinary school. I kind of loved the idea. He said he'd call one of his friends that worked in this very small mountain region in Switzerland. He called, they got back to him relatively quick, said it was going to be a couple of years. Somebody within a week of that first phone call had hurt themselves and wanted out of their apprenticeship, and they said if I could get there in 2 weeks, I could take over that apprentice. So I sold everything I had and moved to Wildhus, Switzerland, which is a very, very small rural mountain town. It's up in the northeast corner of Switzerland. It borders Germany, Austria, and a little country called Liechtenstein. The region is very famous in Switzerland for farm cheeses, handmade cheeses, hand quality meats, smoked meats, and all sorts of just artisanal products. When I arrived in this village, I was very, very excited to see that it happened to be positioned right in the middle of a ski resort, up in some of the best climbing in Switzerland, and the owner of the hotel was a Jägermeister. I grew up hunting. I was very excited to be able to continue to possibly hunt, or at least go on hunts with the Jaegers. A Jägermeister essentially is the hunter master. That means if you shot something essentially in our valley, you had to bring it to our hotel. We would check it in, make sure it was an unhealthy animal, that you shot something that you're allowed to shoot, and we would either process it for you, or we would sell the animal back to you, or we would keep the animal ourselves and utilize it in our restaurant and utilize it and make some of the best charcuterie we possibly could. I instantly fell in love with this process. I loved butchery. I really, really enjoyed standing on my feet all day and just cutting up animals and really taking and utilizing every part of the animal to make some of the most amazing meats and tasty treats that you could possibly do. During my apprenticeship, I did a full culinary apprenticeship, so I did a baking program, dessert program, and of course a cooking program. But I really fell in love, as I said, the butchery and the meat aspect of the program. So I started doing as many stages, if you will, at other butcher shops in the valley, other sausage makers in the valley and all over Switzerland. So I would go down and watch animals get slaughtered, and the whole process and the whole craft of it was really just baffling to me. Long story short, I lived there 4 years, finished my apprenticeship. I moved quickly to Greece to work on a restaurant in an island, came back to Switzerland where I worked another season up in Graubünden, looking at other meat plants and seeing how they made other spectacular meats. After that, my sister moved from Salt Lake to Portland, Oregon, and I missed my family. I gave her a call. She told me I was going to love beautiful Portland, Oregon. She said that, the food is amazing. There's great organic gardens. There's salmon. There's, beautiful beef and pork and all these things. And I was like, oh, I'll see. Once I landed, she took me to the Portland Farmers Market. And she walked around and it was just exactly that. I was seeing the same most beautiful lettuces, chanterelles, porcinis, such abundance, and beautiful vegetables of all sorts, great seafood from the Columbia River. I fell in love very quickly. I instantly was like, well, let's go get some salami. And she looked at me and she's like, I don't know if anybody makes salami. I very quickly thought, well, what a great opportunity that I happen to have spent the last portion of my life learning how to make some of the most delicious meat I possibly could. I told her instantly that we should open up a meat company that was focused on quality and craft and do it very, very traditional, because I think it would work really well in this market. And she said I was crazy. First I should go get a job. And then I agreed with her, and so I became a cook at a restaurant called Castagna and Cafe Castagna here, and slowly but surely worked myself up to the sous chef job in about a year, and then I became the executive chef of Castagna and Cafe Castagna for 5 years, and the whole time kind of figuring out how to open up my meat plant. So I was reading a bunch of USDA law, fact, all sorts of stuff I possibly could to see what it would take to make the dream of opening up a meat shop in America under USDA rule. And so in 2009, one of my work colleagues at the time and good friend, Nate Tilden, broke off from the restaurant I was working at to open up the Clyde Commons and a few other landmark restaurants in Portland. He told me that he was going to open up a charcuterie-focused restaurant. At the same time, me and my sister were working on opening a USDA-approved plant. We decided it was in both of our best interests to work together on this and try to open up a restaurant at the same time as opening up Oregon's first USDA-approved charcuterie shop that allowed us to cure meat and ferment meat and distribute it all across the nation. So that year we opened up our small little 50-seat restaurant in industrial southeast Portland with a 900 square foot USDA meat plant connected to it, right in the heart of the industrial inner southeast side of Portland, Oregon. At that time I was my only meat employee, and most of the owners were operating the restaurant, so there was probably maybe 6 employees total, me being the only employee in the meat plant. That year, for the first 6 months, I continued being the only employee, making all the sausages, working all the farmers markets, really trying to get our feet underneath us. My sister sent off a few salamis to the Good Food Awards. We happened to win 4 awards that year. I finally got myself another employee, and people started asking us questions. Could we distribute to San Francisco? Could we sell to the East Coast? So we just had to figure that out in quite a hurry. In 2011, we opened up our second restaurant in beautiful Northwest Portland, Oregon, called Olympia Provisions Northwest. We found a beautiful building that was about 5,600 square feet, perfect size for a medium, actually very small meat plant at that time as well. Got myself a few employees, and we continued making meat and running restaurants. And about 2 years later, we realized we outgrew that place. And 2014, we opened up the current plant that we're in, and this is roughly 36,000 square feet, not connected to a restaurant, just meat-making paradise, which we will take you on a tour a little bit later, and you'll be able to experience the whole thing. And now, as it currently sits, Olympia Provisions operates 2 restaurants, 17 farmers markets a week. We distribute in pretty much every state across America. We have roughly 130 employees, and we are very, very happy, and things are going great.